big part of that calculation, as you touched on, is your assumptions around or views on interest rates and inflation. What are your views for the next sort of 2 to 3 years, both in South Africa and globally?
So I think from a global perspective, interest rates have got down to almost as low as they can get. Any more cuts are kind of tinkering off a very low level. And the world can't afford for interest rates to go up for a long, long time. A lot of people have borrowed money for their houses, their own lifestyles, or their corporates at extremely low rates. And the impact, it's a lot of debt at low rates. And that's why the US can print so much money, because the actual cost of money is very low. They're only having to pay 0.5% on the money that they're printing at the moment. But and governments simply can't afford for those interest rates to go up, or companies and people will go bankrupt. That's flowed through into South Africa. We've seen some big interest rate cuts. Today, we're expecting at least another 50 basis points. And then you're probably then done in SA. That'll bring prime down to around 7.25. And from a structural point of view in South Africa, we don't think it can get a hell of a lot lower. And from an inflation point of view in South Africa, we're sitting now at a kind of a sustainable 4% type level. There are structural increases. Eskom ain't going to stop putting up prices. Rent and rental increases was always a big driver of structural inflation. That's fallen apart, and we think you're going to see leases being renewed with escalations of 4 to 5% as opposed to 7 to 8%. Inflation, because of some of the factors I talked about, you can have some very short-term deflation, but inflation will probably be sustained at around the 4 to 5% level. And interestingly, it'll be interesting to watch how that flows through into wage increases. People have got used to 8 to 10% wage increases. That's certainly a thing of the past. Michael, I don't know if you're there and you can still talk, but I'd be interested in your perspective on the same question.
I am. In fact, I'm back. But just repeat the question for me if you don't mind, because my sound quality just slipped there.
So it's interest rates globally and locally, and local inflation.
So we currently about to embark, I think, on the biggest experiment the world has ever seen, which is probably negative interest rates. There is a change in the orthodoxy which seems to support this monetary relaxation, which is just throwing money at the problem. And we're going to test the bounds of that, of buying government bonds through central banks, and we're likely to see negative interest rates. Of course, that benefits South Africa, where we still have yield and we still have real yields. It does open up the possibility of the Reserve Bank to today maybe do more than the 50 basis points, although I would agree that that's probably what we're going to see. The problem, though, is that the world is awash in debt, and it's fine right now where we have a very sharp deflationary contraction because there's this demand that has just disappeared. There's no real inflationary pressure. I mean, just to give a basic example, I live on a farm. We have accommodation that we could offer to people, but we've had zero income for many months, and it's unlikely to have any accommodation. So we're going to halve our prices. So certain sectors like this is going to see massive deflation. In the long run, however, inflation is a function of how much money gets created. More money chasing fewer goods. So I think in a certain time frame, and I can't give you the months, we're going to go from sharp deflation to much higher inflation, at which time banks will have to respond by raising interest rates. So short term, we're going to go into negative territory. Long term, I just cannot see how we can print trillions and trillions worth of dollars without it at some stage resulting in massive inflation. So that may be an extreme view. I'm not sure how we position ourselves in that environment, but I'm happy that's your job.